Well, half of your life is also food, right? It's you are built on what you're eating. So definitely pay attention to that. Actually, one more thing is my wife, she's a psychologist, and she recently told me, I'm struggling because I'm thinking that now anytime someone has depression or some kind of issue like that, I think the right choice is to simply eat more meat, and that's it.
All right, Mr. Pablo, thanks a lot for joining me on the podcast. I'm really excited to talk about kind of this debate about veganism versus, eating meat. It's a topic that I have personally been thinking about a lot for the past year. And you and I met at BitBlock Boom, the Bitcoin conference in Texas. And we connected on Twitter, and then I saw in your bio it said recovering vegan of 10 years, I believe. And I was like, oh my God, we need to talk about this. So
glad to be here. Yeah, man, it was really cool meeting you and hanging out in Dallas. And yeah, looking forward to I have no idea what we're gonna be talking about. So yeah, really interesting to dig in.
Yeah, for sure. I guess a good place to start off. I mean, we could talk about so many other things too. I know you're from Argentina, I believe, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, Argentina, they have like hyperinflation every 10 years, basically. So
it's a national sport.
Yeah, it's a national sport. Yeah. So, I mean, the Bitcoin stuff, that's going to be difficult not to talk about, at least for now. But I just want to dive right into it. Like, let me ask you this. What caused you to be a vegan, and how long were you a vegan for? Was it 10 years?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So I started as a vegetarian. I don't know. I think it was probably around 2008. Yeah, about 2008 or so. And a couple of years into it, my idea was to always go into veganism. It was my aim. So I started as a vegetarian because I kept reading, being a vegan is really hard, especially in Argentina. It's really hard to get like tofu and seitan and all these protein substitutes. So becoming a vegan was my goal, but I just stayed as a vegetarian for a few years. And then during a trip in Utah, I decided to just give it a shot to being a vegan. And I found that it was actually pretty easy to do. I read a lot of books, especially when I became a vegan. I read probably 25 books on how to be a vegan, how to not die, basically. And all the stuff that you need to supplement, all the different schools of thought, if you will, of the stuff that you need to supplement, because there are a bunch of vegans that say you don't actually need to supplement B12, which makes zero sense, but there's a lot of people that think that that's the case. And actually, even as a vegetarian, I need to supplement B12. And when I became a vegan, I read that there are more vegetarians lacking B12 than vegans, because usually vegans do supplement B12. And it's a really, B12 deficiency is really hard, because once you start having symptoms, it's been so many years of deficiency that the symptoms are sort of irreversible. So yeah, I mean, and to get back to your original question, I started down this journey pretty much because the idea of there were a couple seeds when I was a kid growing up in Argentina. Meat was a staple at home. We would eat meat pretty much every single day, and as a kid, maybe I didn't want to eat like the chicken heart or organs and stuff like that. My parents would, sort of push me to eat it, or you can't leave the table. Well, that didn't happen too much, but there was some pressure to eat. So the meat, and if I didn't like it, I started to get, a bit nauseous towards meat, and like this unhealthy relationship with it. So I started thinking, well, if if there's a way to not having to eat meat, I'll rather do that. And then I started reading. Basically,
could I ask you a quick question there? Okay, so
go for it.
Was the hesitation for moral reasons, or was it just because you didn't like the taste of meat? I mean,
so when I was a kid, it was the taste and the texture. And in Argentina, we eat all kinds of meat, right? So as a kid, I learned that what we call the chinchulin, which is the lower intestine of the cow, that the inner part, like the filling, is just crap, literally. And I remember like being super grossed out by the idea of eating crap. Okay,
that's understandable.
So yeah, as a kid, it was this. I didn't like the idea, and then when I was 20, 25 or whatever I was, 20 something. It was much more the moral and the idea of it's a really pervasive idea. Because I've been thinking about quitting veganism for a long time. It's just once you've been into veganism, it's really hard. I mean, physiologically, it's hard. And I started thinking, why should I'm thinking now, and it's like, what? Jesus.
Yeah, you're fine.
I was thinking, why should a cow or a chicken or whatever it might be, why should it die for me to continue living, And when you go down that path, you have to justify your existence in front of everything that is, right? You have to justify, do I deserve the destruction of this field of soy to justify my continuing to be alive? And it's poison in your brain, right? Because why do I need to justify my existence to anyone or to anything?
I understand that perspective though, but I think I can understand why somebody would not want to just have to kill other lives in order to stay alive, and I think that's a totally respectable point of view. And I don't know if I'm too far away from the mic, but anyways, I understand that point of view. It is a tough situation.
Sorry to interject there, but the thing is, it's like economics in one lesson style idea, where you're thinking of, oh, I'm killing this cow if I want to eat this meat, right? Or I'm supporting economically someone that is killing the cow because I'm not actually doing the killing myself and the harvesting and everything. But if you're eating something else, there's an impact there. So you also have to accommodate for the impact of eating a lot of tofu, right? And there's a lot of impact of eating tofu. And there's a lot of animals that are getting displaced in order to have these crops. So you have to think of, again, it's back to economics principles in one lesson, right? Is you have to think of all the seen and the unseen.
Yeah. So you're saying that I'm not sure I understand. So you're saying with soy and tofu and stuff like that, you're also harming animals indirectly?
Yeah, absolutely.
How so?
Yeah.
How so?
Well, because you need large fields of factory farming to be able to grow the soy, right? And there's an impact there as well. It's not as obvious, right? Because you don't have the meat of the mice that was displaced. You don't have the meat of the rabbit that was killed. You're not eating the meat of those animals that were harmed by those fields. But that impact is there, right?
So what got you to the point where, I mean, I would imagine health has something to do with it, but what got you to the point where after 10 years of being a vegan, I mean, because that's serious dedication to not eat meat for 10 years. And, you've read tons of books about it. And like I said, I understand the philosophical point of view of veganism, but what got you to change your mind?
So what got me to change my mind the most is actually my wife. She's been struggling with depression is too strong a word, but I don't know, chronic sadness
Yeah.
for a long time, when we were living in Spain. And she started to, she was a vegetarian for a few years before I met her. But she attempted to go vegan during the lockdowns. So during 2020, she attempted to become a vegan. I think probably like maybe July, August, or something like that in 2020. And man, she really tried, like really hard, and it was really not working for her, like at all. And at the same time, when the COVID crash happened, she started looking into Bitcoin much more. So at the same time, she was starting to think about trying veganism, and at the same time discovering Bitcoin Twitter and the carnivore Bitcoin stuff. So she had like these two conflicting ideas in her head. So she tried the vegan stuff for a while, and her depression got much worse, much worse. Her energy levels were just abysmal. It was maybe 11 a.m. or noon, and she would be completely sapped, no energy whatsoever. We have a toddler, a 2-year-old, so there would be this struggle where she can't just go to bed for the rest of the day because she has to be a mom,
right?
And after probably 4 months or so of trying, she decided to just go the opposite way. And she said, you know what, I'm just going to stop this because this is killing me.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go pretty much fully carnivore. And within a week, her energy levels were, I've never seen something like that. Her hunger was gone. Her mood was just off the charts good. Everything changed. And all this unfolded right in front of my eyes. And at the same time, I've been struggling for a long time with never having this sense of being full, of not being of not thinking in the back of my mind of when's time to eat, when can I eat, because I don't want to be, I don't want to be eating all the time. I want to be fit. So she went from being completely sapped to be able to, without even trying, fasting for an entire day. And before becoming a vegan, I used to fast a lot. And increasingly throughout the years, fasting has been harder and harder to the point where even just skipping breakfast would be an issue for me.
Because your body just felt like it needed to have food all the time. It wasn't.
Yeah, man. I mean, I guess so. That's absolutely my guess, because since I started eating so much meat now, I don't think about food at all. I just skip breakfast pretty much every single day. I don't even try to do it. It's just I don't need to eat as much. Yeah. And my energy levels are also off the charts. And it seriously, it's I used to as a vegan, especially the last maybe 5 years, I used to live to sustain my vegan diet.
Right.
And now it's like my it's not carnivore because I do eat. I'm not eating vegetables, but every once in a while I eat yogurt and a bit of bread, stuff like that. So it's not carnivore, but
yeah,
eating meat on pretty much every single serving. And now I just eat to be able to live. And man, it's just a mind shift. It's just so different. I can just go out and do things, and I'm not thinking, oh, well, I should pack some food because I'm going to get hungry. I don't take food with me.
Yeah, no, it takes a large part of your day out of your hands, just eating, preparing the food. Like, yeah, it does take a lot of time. And yeah, I mean, as far as feeling full, I mean, like I said, I considered I always want to consider a point of view before I disgorge it, and like same thing with veganism. And like I said, I was kind of understanding the philosophical argument behind it, and I gave it a try a while back, and I never felt full. I Same thing. Like I felt like I was always hungry and like I was never truly like filled up. Um, and yeah, same thing. I feel so much more energized with meat. I don't feel, yeah, I don't even need breakfast. And I think one really good perspective, I was listening to, John Vallis's podcast when he was interviewing Joel. I don't know if you heard that episode, but
Which one?
Untapped Growth.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And he's got a very good perspective about, like having to take life in order to optimize yours and have your life, a healthy life. He talked about the Native Americans, how the animal would almost present itself to them. And once they, in the process of taking the life of the animal, they would thank it. And, it would be like a spiritual thing. And I just, that's the fucked up thing, is the way that we are getting our meat today is absolutely messed up. And I don't think you have to be a vegan to acknowledge that. Like, I hate meat factories. You know what I mean? It's just, yeah. And aside from that, I also think, okay, the quality of the meat is probably so dependent on the life that the animal lived. Like if I'm out and I'm hunting elk versus, buying meat from a cow that was just not moving around at all in its entire life, it's probably an entirely different source of food that you're putting in your body. So, I mean, yeah, do you have anything to share as far as that kind of perspective of meat factories and the quality of meat that we get?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you think about it, any type of product that we consume, the way it's created, the way that product is created and the love that goes into creating that product shapes the product itself, right? So I build software, right? And for me, the software that I build, I started working on Bitcoin stuff exclusively for the past 4-ish years.
Hell yeah.
And my level of commitment to building this type of software, there is no point in. I used to work before getting into the Bitcoin. I used to work for Hotel Tonight. Before that, I had a company assisting technical recruiters doing machine learning on GitHub repositories to find people that would be looking for jobs and stuff like that. And I couldn't care less about that type of job. Like I had absolutely no emotional connection. It was just a way to get money, and that's it. And when I'm working on Bitcoin stuff, my whole human my whole package of human abilities are going into it, because I really, really deeply care about this. And I mean, if software can reflect, the creation of software can reflect the intention and the emotion, the connection that the creator has with that software. Imagine someone that is building, is creating food. It has to be a much more impactful. So yeah, so right now we live in Costa Rica, getting meat. The meat here in Costa Rica is not great. Or most of the meat here in Costa Rica is not great. So we definitely go out of our way to source the best quality of meat, grass-fed, and just buying. There are a few shops that sell that they are completely vertically integrated. So they can show you the cows and everything while they're alive, right? So yeah, I definitely agree that it's hugely important. And actually, that was the main selling point for me, was the way animals are treated in factory farming.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a tough thing. I mean, I guess it really depends on where you live. Like here in Puerto Vallarta in Mexico, I mean, we do the same thing. We try and just find meat that's locally sourced, but I don't know. That's a real tough thing too, because like growing your own food, I mean, that's probably easier at a local level, or you could do it yourself, but to have your own meat that, you have yourself, and I feel like that creates a lot more trust and dependency on other people. So if you don't have that, then, I'm just thinking in terms of like the supply chain and, stuff like that, because me personally, and I know a lot of other Bitcoiners believe that the supply chain is, it's very centralized in many ways, and it can definitely be used against us. So I don't know. I wonder what the long-term solution is to all of this. I know, what Untapped Growth is doing is definitely a very good solution for having better soil and having better, meat that's locally sourced. But another thing that kind of comes to mind too is the World Economic Forum, and basically every government, and Bill Gates, of course, he's a big funder of Beyond Meat. They have this agenda to get people to not eat meat. And I don't know why exactly. I know that they don't care about us, and in my opinion, they definitely don't want us to be healthy, because if they wanted us to be healthy, then they would tell us to go outside and get sunlight and work out for a virus that kills, a virus of, where 80% of the people dying from it are obese, right? So, but instead they want us to have this injection. And do you have any thoughts on like this growing kind of, not movement, but I guess it is a movement, this growing vegan movement, where it's, instead of just being cool with each other, hey, you have your diet, I have my diet, it's like, it's very aggressive on their end to meat eaters. They think that, they want to cut us off from eating meat. They want to replace it with fake meat, bugs, all that stuff. Like, why do you think they want to do that?
I think it's just it's just part of the trend that we're seeing. It's the exact same thing as COVID, right? I mean, the COVID vaccine. It's this idea that what I'm doing needs to be imposed on you if you don't agree with me, right? It's just one more data point on a larger trend of the exact same behavior. And the way they see it, or the way they say they see it, is that if everybody doesn't do it the way they see that needs to be done, there will be no benefits for everybody. So in the same way that they say, well, every single person has to get the vaccine, otherwise it will not work. They see, well, if someone is eating meat, someone is producing meat. So there is a cow farting somewhere in the world. So everything is going to come into pieces, and the world is going to just implode.
It's insane.
I don't know. That's
to think that there are human beings on this planet that think cow farts are going to kill us. It's like, that's crazy.
It's got to be a massive fart, man.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, like a nuclear
like an atomic
bomb.
fart.
Yeah, an atomic fart. Seriously. Yeah, it's a crazy world we're living in. And
back to what you were saying before, so we moved from Spain. We moved to Costa Rica in March 2021, and the thing that pushed us to, okay, we need to do this right now. We need to leave Spain right now. Was we used to go to this park right next to the beach. We used to take our daughter to this park. It's just a playground. So there was a playground on one side, and then like a calisthenics park, like 20 meters away. And we used to go every single weekend. And my daughter, she would love going there, and she would be looking forward for the weekend to be able to go there. And one weekend in, I think it was probably February 2021. They just closed down the playground. It was a playground outdoors for kids, barely used, on the beach, under the sun the whole day, and they closed that down. And man, I felt so enraged. For me, that was the tipping point where these people are. It's this fragmentation. There is no going back. No. And they also closed the calisthenic park, which for me was, so you are preventing people from exercising outdoors in the sun. It clearly makes no logical sense.
It makes no sense.
It makes no sense.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. And it's got such a, like, I don't know. It has such a dark angle to it too, at least the way I see it. Like, I see all these people walking around without masks, or I'm sorry, with masks on, which it's just totally about stripping the humanity from people. Like we don't, we show so much of our emotions and our humanity through our smiles or our facial expressions, and that's totally taken away. And, you know, a big part of being a human being is being with other human beings, being in community, you know, feeling like you're not alone. And they're just totally stripping that from us. And yeah, it's just it's insane. It's insane to think that some people think that the good guys are the ones like shutting down playgrounds for children. You know, yeah, it's absolutely insane. So, about the meat thing, I mean, are there any like resources where you would recommend maybe somebody who's interested in the carnivore diet to go to? Are there any resources that you learned from a lot? I mean, I'm sure, you know, you put some time in studying this perspective as well, given that you studied veganism a lot. Is there any, you know, major resources?
So there isn't, because my main approach was I'm going to experience it myself because I've seen that it works. I was talking with Francis Pouliot in Dallas, and we were talking about this thing in particular, and he told me that he also adopted a carnivore diet. And the tipping point for him to adopt it, which absolutely resonated with me, was seeing so many Bitcoiners into a carnivore approach. And Bitcoiners in general are very, very disagreeable people. So they will not just do something because someone else is doing it.
Yeah.
But when you see so many people that individually on the edges, they've made this decision, it's something that you at least have to, for myself at least, I have to consider and study and see if it works for me, right? And then just having the experience of my wife and seeing it in real life, just a complete change, 180 degrees change within a week. It's so obvious, right? But for me, the lacking piece of information, because I was looking into, okay, how can I attempt to stop being a vegan? And I couldn't find anything really. I couldn't find, because again, physiologically it's hard, you know, after so many years, just the smell of meat makes it very unpalatable. You dislike the smell, you dislike the taste, you dislike the texture, you dislike the idea of blood, at least for me. Again, this is just my experience.
Yeah.
So I started looking into how to do the transition, and I was struggling, man, for months and months and months. This was something that I kept thinking about, and when I would cut just a small piece of meat right before feeding it to my daughter, I would think about eating it myself, and then, you know, at the last minute, just bail, basically. And the one thing that I saw that worked for me, and I've spoken with because when I started writing a little bit about this, some vegans DM'd me on Twitter, and they asked how was my experience or how I did it. And the way I approached it was I started to eat eggs, just a lot of eggs, maybe like 6 eggs a day or something like that. Okay. And that, I don't know, that helped me quite a bit. I also talked with Alex Vetsky. He was I think he was either vegan or vegetarian for a couple of years.
Really?
And
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And he told me that the same thing, because we when I went to El Salvador, to El Sonte, I was talking to him about this topic because it came up that I was a vegan, and Brecky told me, we worked together, you know. So Brecky told me, "Oh, dude, you're a vegan. You've never said that." And I told him, I don't identify myself as a vegan because I fucking hate vegans. I even when I was a vegan for the entire 10 years, I thought vegans are like the dumbest people ever. And yeah, so Alex Vetsky, he mentioned that he also used eggs as a bridge to go back to eating animal products.
Gotcha. Yeah, that is one thing. I mean, where my mind goes, because right now I like literally one of my top priorities in life is just to find, you know, some land, live off the grid. I don't want to I don't want to have my food, I don't want to depend on other people for my food, basically. So that's, that's one thing that we could have on our own is just eggs. I've heard quail eggs are super easy. They're a lot easier than chickens, but so that's one. Yeah. Are you trying to do the Citadel thing as well? Have you thought about this stuff from the angle of like, how can I have my own? I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, tons of that. It's actually funny because when every time I hang out with Bitcoiners, it seems that's the main topic of discussion is we have a thesis, right? Most Bitcoiners have a thesis of what's going to happen within the next decade or the next 20 years or so. And clearly, the more sovereignty we have, the more we diminish the risk of whatever happens, right? So Citadels and all that stuff. Obviously, I'm not an OG Bitcoiner, so I can't found my own Citadel, but working with other Bitcoiners is it's something that absolutely interests me and absolutely something that I'm pursuing currently, because there's definitely activity, right? You just have to go and meet with people in real life and discuss these things, because it's funny because there's a lot of communication going on Bitcoin Twitter, and that's like the top 1% or 2% of the actual discussion that's going on. And then when you go in and you talk with the people face to face, there's a much deeper conversation happening. That's why I think since I started going to Bitcoiner events and hanging out with Bitcoiners just organically, I realized there is it goes so deep, right?
Yeah,
it goes just so deep.
It does. Yeah, this is the next. Especially me personally, being in Mexico, this is such an important thing in my mind that nation states are losing their cattle. They're losing their tax cows, and they are obviously making it. They're trying to close in the fence. They want to make sure it's very difficult for people to leave. And I see this as the next stage of this movement, this freedom movement, this Bitcoin movement. Why are we living in areas that we hate? Why are we living in areas where people can just so easily control us? We're in this grid where we've got concrete everywhere. There's no nature around us. Tons of people are unhappy. Like so many places, including places in the United States, you go outside and people give you a horrible look for not wearing a mask over your face. And this is something that really excites me, because Bitcoiners are like libertarians who actually have money to do things. And, so I don't know if you're interested in this. I know there's an organization called Freedom Cells. It's called, the website is, I believe, freedomcells.org. And basically that's, where you can type in where you're located, and then it'll show, like-minded people in your area who are just trying to, grow their own food, have emergency supplies, just, get to a point where we're not dependent on them, right? Whoever you think they are, but you're not dependent on some sort of system that can be used to manipulate you. So yeah, that's one good option. I think they have one in Costa Rica, or a few in Costa Rica, but anyways, kind of a rant there, but that's just something that really excites me, because we have the money, we have the same ideologies. We just literally need places on the earth where we can do this. Mm-hmm. So, and kind of a caveat on that, like Mexico, we're talking about food and having our own food and stuff like that. Maybe I would imagine Argentina is similar, but people in Mexico have been through collapses. Like they went through a bad hyperinflation in the 90s and a bad one in the 70s. And, it's nothing's perfect here, but people are a lot more independent here in Mexico. I mean, I drive on the roads. I see people having cows, chickens, growing their own fruit, their own vegetables. Like they're good compared to Americans. I'm curious, is Costa Rica like kind of in a similar situation, or why did you choose Costa Rica?
So the main reason we chose Costa Rica was that it was one of the very, very few countries that was open for us to come in without having to get a PCR done, nice. Which was something that we weren't, except especially with our daughter. I mean, there is absolutely no way I'm gonna allow someone to stick a fucking needle.
Yeah, good.
That swab thing. There is no way. Yeah. So it was either Costa Rica, Colombia, the Dominican Republic, or Mexico at the time, and I think those are the countries that are open for travel without a PCR test. And we ended up with Costa Rica because we saw that it was. We knew where to go already. We had never been to Costa Rica before. We just moved, but we had some friends here that were in a similar situation with a toddler. So it was a good place where to land, basically. A very, very low friction. So that was the reason we went to Costa Rica. And also Costa Rica has territorial taxes. So we could, once we get our tax residency in Costa Rica, we can stop paying taxes in Spain, which were just milking us. And, it's a moral imperative to stop paying those taxes because you're funding the enemy.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. Yeah, that's the truth.
Yeah, absolutely. So Costa Rica was a very clear, also from just getting the residency was very clear how to do it and how to prove to Spain that we have our tax residency in Costa Rica, our centers of affairs, everything is in Costa Rica, and it was very easy to do. So we are pretty sure that we're not going to stay here, and it's almost certain that we're not going to stay here because I'm a rock climber, and it's, as much as I'm a Bitcoiner, I'm a rock climber, and there's no climbing or very little climbing here in Costa Rica. Whereas in Mexico, there's a lot of climbing. So yeah, I'm thinking about going to, in a couple of weeks, I'm going to Mexico to check out the climbing scene there and see where we could.
Nice.
Yeah, man.
Nice. After the recording, we should talk about where, and maybe we could meet up. So yeah, there's some.
Man, I would love that.
Cool.
Yeah, I would love that. I was gonna tweet. I was thinking of tweeting last night that I'm gonna be in Mexico soon, and Bitcoiners, please let me know anyone that wants to meet, because man, it's good for your mental health.
Yeah, it definitely is. I'm gonna be trying to organize a Bitcoin meetup here in Puerto Vallarta within the next couple weeks. So yeah, I really feel like Mexico is just so underrated in so many ways. I mean, the land, I don't know if I told you a bit, Block Boom, at the conference, but like there are already areas in Mexico that are 100% free and the government will not go. And one of them is called Chiron. I talk about Chiron all the time, but for anybody who hasn't heard, Chiron is a place in the state of Michoacan. And it's a town of 36,000 people. And 10 years ago, the people there basically just got really pissed off of getting exploited all the time by the cartel and the government. And they kicked out like everyone there. They kicked out the cartel, their mayor, the police, the national, like all government, totally gone. And when you drive in, they have a sign. So they have like 25-year-olds and trucks and machine guns when you enter the town. And they have a big sign that says, not governed by political propaganda, governed by our own traditions and customs. And that is beautiful, in my opinion.
Holy shit. That is amazing, man.
Yeah. And it's just.
So did you spend some time there?
I did. Yeah. You have to know people in order to enter. And luckily, I know some people who know people in there. And it's just, it's so funny because especially growing up in the United States, you hear anarchy and you think it's just, oh my God, anarchy, like, blood in the streets, bombs everywhere. And, I don't know if you've heard of the movie The Purge, but there's this movie in America where basically the story is that there's one day where government doesn't exist. And on that one day, your neighbor goes out and tries to kill you and just all these horrible things. They just want to put that in people's minds, like without government, without this group of people just stealing 30 to 50% of our money, everything's just going to go upside down. Anyways, long rant, but it's such a peaceful place. It's a beautiful place. Capitalist, like some people make tortillas, some people make, some people sell eggs, some people sell fruit, like whatever, totally agorist economy, the way things should be. Yeah, so
that sounds beautiful, man. I absolutely need to check that out. That sounds super inspiring.
Yeah, if you're near the area, I mean, I'd love to take you. It's really it's just a once in a lifetime opportunity. But I mean, just the point in saying that, we're talking about like the sovereign living citadel idea. In the United States, I don't see that as a feasible option. I feel like, I mean, the president of the United States is basically calling libertarians domestic terrorists at this point. They're saying you should be cautious of people who use the words red pilled and, liberty and things like that. So, and the federal government is a crazy organization. I mean, being in the Marine Corps, I worked with psychopaths. Like it literally breeds psychopathic mentality. So anyways, long story short, I view Mexico as a very good option because in multiple areas they're already free and it just seems a lot more doable in my opinion.
Yeah, that's that was one of the appeals of Costa Rica. It feels like the state here is so small, that they simply, even if they mandate, vaccines or masks or whatever it might be, the state is just so small that they just can't enforce it, and there's some beauty to it. So here, for example, where I live in the north part of Costa Rica, close to Nicaragua. And there's pretty much no traffic laws, it's just, everything is just spontaneous order out of chaos. It's just people making the best decisions that they can, and it's just things work. Whereas in Spain, it feels so top down, and you see the traffic camera in every single road, in their road, most remote roads, and bunch of cameras, and it's just insane. I used to live in a very, very small town in north of Spain, in Catalonia. It was a literally 50 people town. Literally, when we left, it was less than 50.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, we used to have to drive just 1 hour to get the groceries done every week. But it's a very famous climbing spot. It's called Margalef, and at one point they put it was the silliest thing ever. They put a traffic light in the middle of the road in this town. And the traffic light would last for like a minute, So the red would be a minute on. There is no traffic.
Yeah, so you literally stop at the light and it's like the only reason you're not moving forward is because it's a certain color and nobody else is there.
Exactly. Yeah. So the first time I got to the traffic light, I was like, oh, this is new. And I stood there for like 30 seconds thinking, what am I doing?
Yeah.
And then I just went ahead,
Good. Yeah.
But it makes no sense. It's just compliance for compliance sakes.
Exactly. Well, I think about that. That's the thing, is they want people to just like, it's almost like a subliminal sort of compliance training. Like, okay, the light's green, I'm going to do it. The light's red, I'm going to stay. Like, they want people to just think in that sort of perspective, Yeah. Same thing here in Mexico, like tons of places that don't have any traffic lights whatsoever. And it all works out. So yeah, that's like the most important message of our time, is just, the idea that human beings don't need to be controlled, like, or at the very least, we don't need to have an organization comprised of people just like you and me that believe that they have a right to steal our money and use it for our own good. Like, nobody else knows how to spend your money better than you, or my money better than me. So yeah, it's a very interesting time we're living in. I'm very pessimistic on the short term, but very optimistic on the long term, just because of people in Bitcoin and the Citadel idea. But other than that, I mean, it's we got to get ready because
absolutely
we're in a war right now.
Absolutely. I watched Fight Club. So as a kid, obviously I watched Fight Club like a bazillion times. But the last time I watched Fight Club might have been, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago or whatever it might be. And I watched it again maybe 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, and I was shocked by the movie, to be honest. Because if you, I'm guessing you've seen the movie, right?
One time, like 7 years ago, long time ago.
Oh, okay. So the thing about the movie is that the message of the movies is deeply disturbing. It's let's blow everything up because nothing makes sense and nothing matters. There is nothing to hold. There is nothing to believe in, because everything is arbitrary. Everything is negotiable,
Right.
And so since there is no anchor of truth, nothing matters. And because nothing matters, let's just destroy everything. It's big nihilism if you think about it. And when I watched the movie as a kid, I used to, like most kids, I'm guessing, or at least like our style of kids, I used to feel like very identified by the characters, of like feeling very gloomy about the future, thinking, well, everything is crap and everything is unimportant and everything is just stupid. Let's destroy everything. And in my mind, I grew thinking I identify with those characters. And now watching that movie as a Bitcoiner, I think, holy shit, man. Bitcoin is the reason why I'm not thinking, let's just destroy everything,
Right.
Because there is something to believe in and there's something to build on. And it's just this empowering idea that with Bitcoin, there is something you can do to make things better.
Yeah.
You don't need to just sit on your couch and just be super pessimistic about the world and nothing matters and everything is going to shit anyway. You can actually do something about it, and you can actually fix things for yourself on the edge, right? And that's, man, it's 180 degrees switch in mindset, right? You have agency.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. I mean, if people don't have property rights, then it's very hard. Like, similar to that, nihilistic perspective where I'm from in Los Angeles, it's so hard for people to, be independent after school. I have tons of friends who just live at home with their parents, and just because everything's so expensive and it's like the future is so dark to so many people because they can't imagine buying a home or, having all of those things. So, when you have private property, which Bitcoin is the best form of private property in all of mankind ever created, then it opens up a lot of doors. So before we kind of near the end of the conversation, I am curious. I don't think we've talked about this. Could you just describe what you're doing in the Bitcoin space? I mean, I know you're working in the space, I believe, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I've been working for the past 9 months. I've been working with Swan Bitcoin. I did a project with Brady before last year, I think it was, called Bitcoiners Best. So it's kind of like a hacker news for content for Bitcoin, and you would like vote up with Lightning payments. And yeah, since then I knew the guys behind Swan Bitcoin, and I really like this concept of we don't need to just onboard every single person into, like this Marxist idea of if either everybody goes into Bitcoin or it doesn't work. It doesn't work that way. It's not like the way these maniacs see the vaccines. It's just that this idea of we need to get some amount of people to understand Bitcoin for real, and really become Bitcoin, not just price exposure, which is the saddest thing ever. And I really like what they were doing. I really like the people behind, like the individuals behind Swan Bitcoin. So I saw this opening that Brady tweeted in December, and I just talked with Jan and Corey and Brady, and yeah, I was sold on the idea of coming into the team. And since then, after especially after Bitcoin 2021, I got very bullish on Lightning, and all that part that I had kind of negated as this is cool, but it's not that that important. And I started looking into it much more. So I've been just building stuff for myself with Lightning and studying Lightning and studying my recent rabbit hole as of the last month or 2 months has been DLCs. I'm super deeply interested in everything that DLCs unlock and all the possibilities there. So yeah, I'm trying to build like an options market for, do you know options?
Yeah, I mean, I have a general idea. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, I'm trying to build like an options market based on DLCs. So they are fully covered, like they are not marginalized, and yeah, fully self-custodial. So I don't know. I think there's a lot of opportunities there. So that's what I'm getting into now. And the DLC space is, the specs are being written now. So there's a lot of margin of maneuver there. So yeah, that's what I'm working on now.
Right on. Awesome. Yeah, it's awesome to work in the space, and everybody you worked with just like 100% understands it. It's a lot different than working a normie job. So
I can't. Yeah, like I said, my last normie job was at Hotel Tonight, and I think that was like 2014. I think that was when I had my last normie job, and I couldn't go back to something like that because I really don't care. And I was talking with a Bitcoiner in Miami, and he was saying that he normally doesn't suggest people to go into Bitcoin for work, because you can mine more fiat working a normie job and then just converting everything to Bitcoin.
Sure.
But then my counter argument to that was that there is a tax in working in something you don't care about.
It's your soul. Yeah.
It's your soul. If you think about it, it's a form of lying, right? If you're working on something you couldn't care less about, it's like a small percentage of being not completely truthful with yourself, at least. I think it's a very poisonous thing to do, to work on things you don't care about. I think it's problematic for you as an individual, at least for me as an individual.
I agree. I think at the very least you should do something that you're proud of. Like I understand, like, not everybody is going to work in a job that they just absolutely are passionate about, although it should be that way. But at least, like, you should work in a job that you're proud of, at the very least, something you're happy to do. But yeah,
I think the problem with that point of view is that it implies a normalization of just being a mercenary and working on anything,
Right.
And I think again, I'm talking as an individual. I'm not going to impose my views on anyone.
Yeah.
But I think you should always strive to work on what you really, really deeply care about, and not think, well, yeah, it's okay because not everyone is going to work on, building just super cool stuff, and it's okay to work at the gas station or whatever, even if I don't care about it.
Right.
It's okay as a stepping stone, but you should keep in mind that it's a stepping stone, and you should strive to do your absolute best on anything you do.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. Yeah, when I was saying that, I mean, yeah, as a sort of a stepping stone of getting to a place where you do what your work is something you truly want to do. But I mean, at least being in the Marine Corps, like I don't know. It hurts me to see people who do things that they actually don't morally agree with, because that's the worst thing. It's one thing to be in a job that you just don't like, but it's another thing to be in a job where you don't morally agree with what you're doing. And I mean, that's another thing with the Citadel stuff. Like, work dependency is another means that they are going to use to control you. I know of a few people that said, I'm never going to get this vaccine. And then their employer, threatened them, and basically they got a bunch of peer pressure, and then they got the vaccine. So it's tough. It's tough. But yeah, I think it's very important to just live your life in accordance with your beliefs. And sometimes it sucks and you're going to lose friends, and it's not easy. but it's absolutely worth it. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's anytime you just cave in, you are perpetuating what you don't want to see in the world, right? So it's high time preference thinking, right? Well, I'm going to just comply with this thing. I know it sucks, but it's just okay, and whatever. It's going to unlock this possibility of, I don't know, whatever, keeping this job or traveling to X, right? And it's just one more boat towards keeping this system, right? So anytime you show your QR code, your vaccine passport, all this stuff, you're just perpetuating and accepting this system. I've heard of some people that have gotten like a fake vaccine passport, and that idea. Sorry, that idea. I found it really problematic because you are agreeing that you shouldn't get the vaccine for whatever reason suits you, for whatever reason, but you are accepting the system of control of having the vaccine.
I know. I agree with the same thing. That should, that should be our absolute last option. Because once that happens, then we're just totally giving into that system. We're not fighting back at all. Like, yeah. And God, I hope we don't get to that point. I mean, I also hope there are going to be other alternative means of travel as well. We'll see what happens, but yeah, that's not a future that I want us to go into. So, well, anyways, hey, just to wrap up, could you share maybe your Twitter or anything else that's worthwhile for sharing before we call it a day?
Yeah, absolutely. So my Twitter is Pablo F7Z, which is an engineering thing where we shorten things with just the first letter and the last letter and the number of letters that you removed. So it's a really bad name, especially to say it aloud.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just for Bitcoiners, your audience, from what I've seen, is mainly Bitcoiners. I think we just need to continue doing what we do and just continue thinking at the edge and not trying to impose anything on anyone, and just continue to be truthful, and the truth will win at the end. It's going to be a hard time coming in for the next few years, but at the edge, so for individuals, it's going to be awesome. So we just have to continue doing what we're doing.
Yep, 100% agree. Yeah, absolutely. There's that. I think I forget who has the quote, but there's that quote I like. The truth is like a lion. Once it's released, it cannot be contained. So yeah, same thing with the truth. So, all right, man. Well, it was a lot of fun. Just talking about your relationship with meat and how that transition happened from being a vegan to being a meat eater, and kind of the philosophical thoughts on that and your own personal experience. And this food thing is it's so crucial. We're putting things in our body, and I think it's very easy for us to just forget about how important that is. What am I putting in my body? How is this affecting me? Is this going to make me live a long time, or is this going to limit my life? So
yeah, absolutely. In a way that Bitcoiners would resonate with that message is within Bitcoin, we always remind ourselves and others that half of every economic transaction is money.
Yep.
And that's why money is so important. Well, half of your life is also food, right? You are built on what you're eating. So definitely pay attention to that. Actually, one more thing is my wife, she's a psychologist, and she recently told me, I'm struggling because I'm thinking that now anytime someone has depression or some kind of issue like that, I think the right choice is to simply eat more meat, and that's it.
That's another thing. I mean, that nobody talks about that. I feel like, I mean, especially in the United States, if you're, misbehaving in class, you have ADHD, or, you know, if you're feeling bad, you have depression, and they just throw these meditations at you. But I know nobody really talks about like the effect that food has on you and your emotions. So that's, yeah, I mean, that's good that she's thinking about that in her position. But yeah. Well, hey, I really enjoyed it. Let's keep in touch. Maybe, you know, in the future at some point we could talk again on the show, and yeah, go from there.
That would be awesome. That would be awesome, man. Thanks for having me. It was an awesome conversation.
Awesome. Thanks, Pablo. Cheers.
Cheers.